Yo, what's up ladies and gentlemen, good to see you again, and today I want to talk about some of the important cards to consider with EB01 and OP07 right around the corner. But before we hop into that, just to let those who ordered a playmat know, they were just shipped out yesterday and today. If you want to get your hands on one, I ship them out either the same day that you order or the day after, just kind of depends on the time that you order. But there's a 10% discount if you order 2 or more, and you directly support me and the channel by picking one up, so thank you very much for supporting me. Alright, so let's start with EB01. There's going to be 3 new leaders coming out, and that's going to be Odin, Hannibal, and Kyros. The leaders aren't really like hitting any competitive strides in the Eastern meta, but they're definitely interesting. What really makes EB01 shine though is that a lot of the cards that are coming out really bolster like already existing leaders in the game. Kind of like such as but not limited to like red purple law, purple yellow crocodile, green Uda, and some of the starter deck 13 leaders as well. So, you know, with a lot of those leaders receiving, you know, some powerful assets, I think it's worth considering picking up some cards before we get into those sets, just because the rise in prices might change. You never really know where the market's going to go with a lot of this stuff. So I just kind of want to go over some of the cards that are worth picking up, potentially worth picking up for a lot of these leaders, and why they might be helpful. Alright, to start us off with Red Purple Law, there's going to be a few pickups that are really important, Gordon being one of them. Unfortunately, this card, though, is probably one of the worst cards that I have to recommend on this list as far as price is concerned. It's $33 right now per Gordon, which is wild. Yeah, I know there's some people of the mindset that you can use Raise Max instead of it. Realistically, what it is that Gordon is being used with Raise Max, so you're running 4 of each of them. And so this card being $33 at the moment, and it's up from what, $15 back in February, pretty rough. But if you are planning on running Red Purple Law, I would at least consider getting 2 of these, because running 4 Raise Max and 2 Gordons is probably the least you could do to maybe just kind of like skate away with that. It's just a really important card for how the deck functions, the usage of, you know, some of the mechanics of everything. So very important, ties in with the new chopper blocker that comes out in the EB01 set. So as much as I hate to put this up here, it's a really important card to be picking up for Red Purple Law. And then diving into Reiju. Reiju is from OP06, is sitting steady at about $15. This is just incredible draw power for Red Purple Law. I mean, there's not really any other deck that you'll be playing against that you'll somehow have more Dawn than them, unless you're playing the mirror matchup. So Reiju is just extremely important in being able to get a lot of card draw power after, you know, having used, you know, 2-3 cards in one turn. So just being able to recycle that hand, extremely important. We also have the Kid blocker. This is a card that I'll probably be mentioning another time as well, because it's just a really important card for not only Red Purple Law, but a lot of the purple decks coming out in the future. So this is going to be a staple in a lot of purple lists that we'll see coming out, as well as OP08. You know, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to look that far ahead in the future, but the Black Purple King list, you know, just running a lot of the animal pirates, but this card alone, just being able to ramp back up Dawn, is just extremely important. It's running at like $7 right now, so it's great. I don't think it's overpriced at the moment. I know that purple isn't the most dominant color in the meta right now, but it does have its place and is a very, very strong card for the future of that color. So, and then we also have the promo law. I think this one is kind of up in the air whether it's 100% necessary, but it is a great piece to add into Red Purple Law. It's a $20 card right now, which is pretty rough, I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, that's the thing with some of these promos, is that I'm kind of hoping that we see some form of like mass print of these early sets that were really hard to get your hands on. And not even early sets, these are like, they were flimsy little packs that they came in at the very beginning of like OP01. So getting your hands on these cards might not be the easiest, but if you are trying to run red purple law, it is kind of a fringe, it's kind of a fringe list running some of these promos that are very scarce right now. So this might end up being one of the more costly decks for sure, but kind of is what it is. All right, and hopping into one of the leaders that I'm actually most excited for is Purple Yellow Crocodile. I don't think it's going to be like extremely competitive, but I do think it's going to be very fun. It's going to be very fun to play. It's going to be, I don't know, just really cool to see how this works with a lot of the EB01 support that comes out. But Katakuri, yet again, going to be a very important card in that list, and it's sitting at a pretty $60 right now. It's a little cheaper than what it used to be. It was borderline hitting 90 back in OP05 with Enel really doing well. But since Enel kind of fell off in OP05, it is starting to rise again, and that's more than likely what we're going to see, not only just for Purple Yellow Crocodile, but for Enel and OP07. This card is going to continue to rise, but I do think that this card will fall in price probably when the reprint set comes out in October. I think it's October that it comes out, but it's the reprint set called the Best, Best Booster Box that's supposed to have like multiple super rares, secret rares, rares, commons, all that good stuff. So I can't imagine that this card wouldn't be in that set, so I think that this card will more than likely rise up until that point, and then it will probably fall once we've seen, that card will be kind of mass printed in that set. And then a great card to pick up if you're interested in Purple Yellow Croc right now is 8-cost Crocodile. 50 cents. Card is selling for 50 cents. This card is so good. It is unbelievably good. The only thing that is unfortunate about it is that it's basically, well, not basically, it is. It's leader locked, essentially. The the ability of this just not being able to use it, unless your leader is particularly of the sorts of, what was it, the Baroque Works? Yeah, it has to be Baroque Works. I still think this card is so good. It is criminally undervalued, especially when we do see a phenomenal leader come out with the Baroque Works archetype. Like, I do think that Purple Yellow Crocodile's leader effect is very good. However, I do think that there is room for improvement on what a Baroque Works leader could look like. And having 8-cost Crocodile, it's going to be sweet when that hits. So definitely worth picking up. 50 cents. I mean, come on. And we also have the 9-cost Yamato. Yamato is going to be great in Enel. It's going to be great in Crocodile. So this is about $5 right now, but I do think it'll rise probably once OP07 comes out. But this is just going to be extremely useful for both of these lists. Very powerful card. And, just kind of works. You guys already know. With Enel, at least, like, the card works with the leader effect. It's amazing. Yamato does a really good job with Purple Yellow Crocodile as well, just keeping it in the game and allowing you to set up this very powerful board. Defend yourself with those 1-cost events. So really worth picking those up if you're interested. We also have Miss All Sunday. I'm not entirely sure if I'd say this card is like a necessity in Purple Yellow Croc, but it does feel very good, so can't really complain about that. It's also got a lot of things that just kind of work synergistically with the deck, not only being searchable, but just having that trigger that potentially allows you to ramp a Dawn 2 times, one for leader effect and then a second time for the on play effect. So super solid card, definitely worth picking up at $1.50 I believe right now. And then we also have Blast Breath. Blast Breath is just, I just think it's one of those cards that it's great and it's not great. I think it's great in the Purple Yellow Crocodile deck, but I think it was made kind of before the time of realizing that triggers were pretty important for cards like this. So just not having a trigger kind of makes Blast Breath maybe less desirable in a lot of lists, but I still think it's a super solid card to pick up for Purple Yellow Crocodile right now, because yet again, it just works so well with the leader effect. It's a free plus 4K essentially, and I mean, you can't really beat that. The only thing that would make it better is if it was searchable. But yeah, Purple Yellow Croc is going to have a ton of amazing one-cost cards, one-cost events, excuse me. And, you know, I don't know if Blast Breath's like a 4 of per se, but I still think that this is a card that's worth mentioning, just because let's say it doesn't fit into the Purple Yellow Croc list here. It's definitely going to fit in elsewhere. So if you don't have them, it's probably worth checking out getting this card before it continues to go up, you know. Or there might actually be that starter deck reprint set coming out, starter deck 15 through 20. So it actually might be in there. Now I think about it, I didn't think about that before hitting the record button. So that's also something to keep in mind. And then we also have Green Uta. Uta is going to be getting a couple of buffs in EB01, being the 2K counter Sanji as well as Bluno. And so with that, we actually ended up seeing Uta take one of the championships. And that's like pretty solid, considering it was a very black heavy meta with a lot of removal. So this deck having a lot of card draw but more consistency now is really good. And that makes picking up Eustace Captain Kidd as well as Nami, these two cards, very important. These cards are just like fantastic for how the list wants to work, with how many blockers it runs, as well as now the consistency of the 2K counters and having a lot of those really powerful events. Nami helps you find them. Kid helps you protect yourself. It's great. And then the starter deck 11 also isn't, you know, extremely overpriced right now. It seems like it's kind of staying about the MSRP price, around $13-12. And the nice thing about that is that, you know, most people realize, like, it's just a reprint starter deck. It's got all the cards that came in starter deck, or excuse me, OP02 with the green release of film. And yeah, I just think having these at that price is fantastic. It's worth picking up, worth mentioning, and I think Uta is going to be really fun to play after EB01 comes out. And with EB01 as well, it's going to have a couple of things that are going to buff up some of the starter deck 13 leaders, as well as, well, Black Yellow Luffy is one of the starter deck 13 leaders, but we have Flampe and Viola. You know, if you're going to be picking up starter deck 13, those are just cards that you're definitely going to want to have for some of the EB01, you know, upgrades that we're going to be getting. And excuse me, yeah, like Flampe and Viola. So I'm excited for seeing how Black Yellow Luffy does. And I know that there are lists that don't run the Viola, that don't believe it's necessary. I'm totally on board with that. I don't think it's necessary either, but it does seem fun. It does seem nice. To be able to get those cards back into a face down position, so that then you don't have to worry about, you know, the worst case scenario of losing a card out of life that potentially could be what wins you the game the following turn, because I have found myself in that situation. But that's probably going to wrap it up for some of the EB01 leaders, and now let's hop into OP07. Yeah, and with OP07 right around the corner, we've got some new support and additions that make some of these cards worth looking at. And to start us off with the Lucci leader that comes out in OP07, there's a lot of important cards that came out, I believe, in OP03. And that's going to be Kaku to start. So Kaku is sitting at around $3.50. This is just going to be a super big staple for the CP9 package, being able to KO a lot of cards and allowing kind of Rob Lucci to do his thing, you know, to be able to use the leader effect effectively and to get some KO power off that. Kaku is going to be very nice. Also amazing 1K counter. I think this is at $3.50. These are definitely worth picking up if you're interested in that. I think that Lucci's going to be a top contender for, you know, being probably like the second best black deck in OP07. If I had to take a guess, could be wrong. I could be wrong. I think Gecko Moria is still going to outshine Lucci just a little bit, but yeah, that's worth mentioning. And then we also have Khalifa. Khalifa's that 2K counter that is just fantastic. It was actually used mostly for draw power back in the day of like, you know, OP03 and black not really having a lot of draw and like cycle ability. So Khalifa is going to be really useful. It's only at 30 cents as well, so that's just a nice rare to pick up and super solid for that Lucci matchup. And we also have the Spandam, your searcher for the CP9. Spandam is annoying but great. I think that this card is like one of those cards I hated at the time of its inception, because I was not happy with how it was. I believe it's leader locked, if I'm not mistaken. And I wanted it to be able to, you know, search out CP9 cards, but we got Lucci. We got Lucci now. We're looking good. You know, I didn't want to play Lucci back then. I wanted to play Smoker or, what was it? No, I believe it was just Smoker at the time. And it just wasn't working for me. So, like, now we've got, you know, great opportunities with that. So, at 20 cents, definitely going to be picking up 4 of those. And Sabo. Oof. Oof. The rise of this card has been brutal. It's been brutal. Like, obviously, I'm glad I have mine. I got mine when OP04 came out. But, my God. Card is $22 for the regular SR. And honestly, it's totally worth $22. It's arguably the best blocker in the game. I would say that it's probably one of the most useful effects in the game as far as an SR is concerned. It's extremely good. There's not really like, there's not many decks that you wouldn't want to run this card in if it does have the color combination of black included. So like, Sabo is just a menace, and I don't see this card going down in price anytime soon, so I would say it's worth picking up, because it feels like this is probably our next Borsalino right here. We're going to be looking at Sabo hitting higher and higher numbers, but yet again, worth mentioning, it could go down because of the reprint set in October, so that is very much so worth mentioning. But if you are trying to play it in OP07 before, you know, this reprint set comes out, might be time to pick it up. Might be time to pick it up. And going into Bonnie. Bonnie is going to be a lot of like Supernova package, and also just having, you know, a lot of the 2K counters from the early starter decks and OP01. And those are just really important to have. And right now, like, since OP01 was, you know, very shortly printed because they were testing the interest in the game and everything, some of those just uncommons and rares are actually quite high as far as price for an uncommon or a rare are concerned. So like Ezo, Apu, and Bonnie are sitting at $4, $2, and $2 respectively. And I mean, these cards are going to be very important though, because Bonnie allows you to search out Apu. Apu is going to be, you know, very useful, as well as the addition of, you know, some of the new cards, the new Supernovas that are coming out in EB01 and OP07. Ezo, arguably you could just swap this out for a different 2K. I just think it's really good to have, you know, another potential capability of resting a card for 3 Dawn. It's a 2K counter, very easily discarded, and very nice to just have a rest. Like, we know that there are a lot of blockers in that 4-cost range. We're definitely starting to see some creep up to that 5-cost range, but I still think this card is it's probably one of the best 2Ks in green at the moment. We also have, obviously, the 8-drop Kid. Kid is, as we talked about before, sitting at about $36. It's a pretty important card. But another one that we could potentially see in the reprint sets, or potentially the reprint starters. But I know that I don't know all the information about the reprint starter decks, whether those will be strictly just reprint cards, or if it's going to be a couple of reprints with a bunch of new collections. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens there. I think they're probably going to go along the lines of, you know, what's going on with starter deck 11 being a kind of like a big reprint, but have some new unique cards like they had the SR Uta, as well as the events. So we also have the 9-cost Zoro. This is actually when I think this card might be relevant in the meta, is this card being at $22 right now, but floating into the Bonnie deck list it has some potential there. I think Zoro is one of those cards that eventually is going to be a really big threat in this meta, but I don't know if this is the time. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Kid, you just kind of get immediate value. 9-cost Zoro, you just kind of pray your opponent can't remove it. And if they can't, then you're sitting pretty. You are sitting so pretty. But it's a really big threat that your opponent has to answer. And with no answer, that could be really tough. That could be potentially game losing. And yeah, it's gonna be a doozy to see where that goes. We also have Enel being, you know, one of the bigger contenders for like top deck of OP07 meta, and this has got a lot of kind of, I would say, pretty expensive cards that are going to be ran in this. Obviously the secret rare that's coming out, but I want to focus more on, yet again, cards that we're trying to pick up, and you know, are they worth picking up at this point, because maybe the price rises. So we got Katakuri again, like we talked about with Purple Yellow Croc, sitting at about 60 bucks. That's rough. It breaks the bank just thinking about that. But you know, unfortunately, that card is very powerful in this list, being able to bounce back Shirahoshi, as well as potentially other lower cost cards, and just getting a free life. You know, it's so strong. Removing your opponent's larger cost cards that you can't really deal with, very, very solid. We also have Yamato again at $5. This card is just, it's the lifeblood of Enel. It's so good. I guess maybe with the new ace it could be not so much the lifeblood now that the new ace will be pretty much the same effect, but with rush. Honestly, both are going to be insane, and Enel's going to be a problem. It's going to be so hard to deal with. We're going to have also the 7-cost Enel. This is at $1 right now. Granted, I don't think that this card is like a must-have. I think this is going to be more of like an interesting line that people will run. I think people will more than likely prioritize the 7-cost Lin over the Enel, but I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see where it goes. I think that, you know, we were shown the power of Enel, you know, through the first North American Championship, with Jonas taking, you know, the 7-cost Rush Enel in there, and it felt as though not many people were running it. It felt like there were a couple decks that had it, but it's strong. It's strong. The removal is very annoying to get rid of. So I think that there is a lot of power there, and there's a lot of potential with this list. We also got the 7-cost Lin, as I was just talking about, being at about $20. It might be worth just picking up the starter deck, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, you get 2 of the Lins, and there's some other cards in there that are probably going to be staples for a lot of future yellow decks anyways, so that's a consideration. But yeah, I don't know. Yet again, just with not enough information on some of the starter decks that are coming out 15 through 20, can't really tell whether that's like a good play or not, but definitely something to consider for this deck. So yeah, guys, there's many more decks that are going to receive support, but these are just some of the decks that I thought had cards worth highlighting that could be great pickups, either before they rise in price, or, you know, who really knows with the market that we have going on right now. It's very volatile, but it's worth keeping up on. And so I like to make these videos normally before every set, just to give an idea of, you know, what is worth potentially looking at, you know, not always worth picking up, and if you have extras of, maybe getting rid of, so that other players can get their hands on them and they can, you know, try out some of these lists as well, and you can make a quick buck. So I hope you guys enjoyed, though. I would love to hear your thoughts, and other than that, I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.